Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Jackson, and I am here with the Pen Posse author interview, something we haven't done in a long time. And I'm so excited that I am able to come back to you at this point to talk with another amazing author. And as you can see behind me, I'm really plugging the Black Ink Book Festival that's coming up here in New Orleans. Just wanted to throw that in if you're wondering what that is behind me. But today is not about the Black Ink. It is all about Miss Khadijah Butler, who is an author, a self-help author who's written a book about scholarships. And she's going to talk to us about nonprofits and privacy, private foundations, and understanding what inspired her to write her book, Laying the Foundation Brick by Brick. Now, for those of you out there who love a good self-help book like me, who's always looking for a way to learn something to improve upon my skills when it comes to doing things. I am also the executive director of a nonprofit, so I understand the importance of these nonprofits and the importance of how they help the community. But now we have someone who has taken a personal experience in her life and has penned a book that talks about how do we create these types of scholarship programs for our young people so that we can put money in the hands of those who are in most need and make sure they can go off to college and have a great life. So as we know, every nonprofit, every private foundation, they have a mission, right? And so what is that mission? Some of them are creating scholarships. Some of them are creating programs within the community. Some have a church. Some may have countless different things that they could do with their particular nonprofit or private foundation. But today we have Ms. Butler here, and she's going to talk to us very specifically about her work. And we're going to learn from her, and hopefully, prayerfully, we're going to all go out there and purchase her book, because these author interviews are all about supporting our author. So let's bring her on the screen. Hey, Khadijah, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for the introduction, Michelle.
Well, you know what? It's so good to have you here as the executive director of Life Skills Foundation. When I read your book, it really did make me think about the things that we were trying to do here in New Orleans. So our goal is to support youth and youth entrepreneurs. And Black Ink Book Festival is part of a program that is co-sponsored by Life Skills, because we spend that opportunity to not only reach those who are trying to help those Black and brown writers, but also trying to help people who want to read books by our Black and brown writers. And because we have book bans and so many things that are going on, it's important that we have these book fairs and continue to push the word out there. We give away free books and just make sure it's a big community event. But that's what I've got going on. Let's talk about what you've got going on, which is laying the foundation brick by brick. Yes. Really excited to learn about this book, but let's stop and hear from you. Tell us about yourself and tell us a little bit about the book before we kind of dig into it and go deep into how this book can be very helpful to the audience.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I am the founder and president of the Craig D. Butler Scholarship Foundation. We've been established since 2020 on my father's birthday. Craig D. Butler is my father, who the scholarship is named. My father was murdered by a 14-year-old in 1999, and my family and I provide scholarships to African-American high school seniors in Pennsylvania and now in Camden County, New Jersey. We do have a couple of programs as well. We just started a winter trunk party initiative where it's a donation drive for college students. We provide scholarship workshops for parents of, it has just been Philadelphia, but we are going to expand as well. And we do attend anti-violence resource events as well. As far as who I am, people call me a lot of things outside of being an author, outside of being a nonprofit founder, a community violence disruptor, a laugh out louder, a lot of things, an empath. And I guess now I can add steward, because this is not for the faint at heart. And I'm going to stop there because I know that was a lot. That was a mouthful.
You know, I think it's important always to get to know the writer and what inspires the writer, because those inspirations, they're life-changing. What happened to you, what happened to your father, is something that not only changed your life, changed your family's life, but now it's changing the community. And I know
Yes.
that's pretty much what you wanted to do with it. So talk to us about the overall goal of your book. What is it that you were hoping people will learn when they read your book, Laying the Foundation Brick by Brick?
I'll say initially, and this is literally the first page in my book, I did not want to be a writer. I did not have a traditional path of like, oh, I'm going to go to English school. And like, that was not, it just literally fell into my lap. I was getting interviewed for a magazine, and there was a publisher who reached out to me and said, I think with the kind of story that you have, it'll not only touch people, but it will also be a tool for you. And it took me a while after the push and pull and the fight. But for the most part, it was the inspiration of needing to get over the grief that I thought I had gotten over. I mean, we're talking 27 years now, like since this has happened, but there were so many moments where as I'm writing, thinking about the memories of my father, you know, I also thought about how much of a healing tool it was for others. And to this day, I still get a lot of feedback, since this is now going to be the second edition, about how impactful it was and how using this tool, it's like a grief tool. Like some people love to journal, some people like to write. I just heard about paint therapy. Like there are a lot of people in Philly now who use paint therapy. And so I was happy that people not only had a tool to grieve, but they could also turn their pain into purpose, and make it meaningful, not just for their family, but for the community.
Excellent, excellent. So in the book, you answer some questions that need to be answered. You talk about things like knowing what is a private foundation versus a public charity, understanding budgeting and planning, and how to create these scholarships, these scholarship programs. Now, for those, like I said, out there who have a nonprofit, you know, it's a process. You know, it's a process. You go into it with the goal of doing good in the community. You set your mission, but then you have to fundraise for many of us. And then you have to create a board. And then you have to make sure everything that you said in your initial analysis or summary of what your nonprofit would do, that you're actually doing it. And you have to be accountable. You have to be accountable to those who are investing in your nonprofit or making donations to your nonprofit, and to the community itself. So talk to us a little bit about that private foundation versus public charity. And let's just demystify what this foundation or building these organizations are all about, because I teach entrepreneurship, and so I have people say, I'm going to start a nonprofit, but nonprofit is not a business. And I'm going, nonprofit is a business.
I think, listen, Michelle, this is literally the hardest thing I've ever done. There's never been, not only not being a writer, but like starting a nonprofit. I've had friends who've had one, but not going as far as the mission of, oh, I'm going to like start a nonprofit in someone's name. It is, you know, I think the great thing is that I had the pain point of having my father as something that motivated me. But it's not easy. It is certainly, when it comes to a business, because we have an LLC as well for like the merchandise. But there are so many things that people don't understand. I try to say to people, the public cares more about you than they do me when it comes to the nonprofit and running it. They care more about how it's going to serve you. And as you said, you know, being an executive director, you understand like the amount of rules and laws and how your entire space and being is being invaded by the community at any given time. Now, it's a impactful, like immediate impact, I'll say, when it comes to what we receive in regards to how we're helping the students, but it's a lot of work. So to answer your question just about the private foundations and the public charity route, private foundation, typically the real difference is the actual tax structure and who it benefits. So when you're thinking of like private foundations, it's like Bill Melinda Gates, $1 million high earner. You know, they're about building for their legacy, and they have that financial control, versus a public charity, which the Craig D. Butler Scholarship Foundation is. It's about having that tax exemption and also using it for those deductions, like for those donations, serving the actual community instead of serving yourself. And then also, it's really just about how the board is going to govern a lot of the mission and some of your day to day. So I think when I talk about this in the book as well, for me, it was really about like that perpetual existence. Like if you think about like looking out at a street, you know, your street isn't something that you actually created, but it's governed by the city, the county, whoever. So I feel like the street of Craig D. Butler Scholarship, it's going to be here, obviously, after my father has gone and after I leave. Like it's still going to be here to serve. It's just going to be a matter of who's running it as once I go.
Let's talk a little bit about your dad. You know, I know what it's like to lose someone very close, and I've lost many people in my life, and I've watched families, including my own, develop programs after the death of a relative. It gives you a way to grieve. You know, it's a great way to grieve and give back. But you talked about he was murdered by a 14-year-old, and you decide to create a foundation that gives funds to kids, to teenagers. What happened within that situation that you said the best way to give back to my father is to help people who may have hurt him, and the best way to get back to the community is to make sure that they're not going down the same path? Talk to us a little bit about that experience and how has it helped you?
It was rough. I'll say, I think that's another reason why it was important for this book to come out as well. Like really me highlighting those moments of things I had forgotten, because when you experience a trauma like that, it's, you know, in therapy, they kind of tell you so many things that you sort of push down. And then as you're writing about it, and, you know, there's things I had to ask my mom and family about as, you know, I was writing the book. It was not an easy process. You know, to this day, it's something that I still deal with because, you know, he's still in jail and he's up for parole, and that's a process. But once again, like, there's so many different ways that you can utilize that level of trauma. You can either be upset, you can, you know, people use different things to cope. You know, I definitely struggled because it was my sophomore year at Temple. Like it was the first time I had ever gotten on academic probation. I graduated 4th in my class. And so I knew I really needed to do it for him. Like I really did, because it was like, if I don't, then I'm going to be like my community that's around me. And so while the impetus was starting it based off of him being murdered, it really was just about a need. Like Philadelphia in general is one of the biggest underserved populations, especially for African-American students. You know, the other thing is it's always there's bad things that happen in Philly, right? And that's not true. Like there is something very stunting. I mean, you'd like to stunt on somebody, right? When it comes to telling someone, no, I have students who have 4.0s. They do not have the same academic experience as you, or they might not have the finances, but they are on the same playing field based off of their accomplishment. So I felt like, again, that whole turning the pain into purpose thing, you know, it's really important for me to amplify those that if they were given the opportunity based off of their circumstances, that they could persevere, just like me, actually.
Great. That is awesome. I'm just happy to see you turn that pain into purpose. And I think a lot of us as writers, that's what we do. So we're part of the Black Writers Workspace. You're 17,000 writers and readers. We're all talking about how to publish our books and, you know, how to write with meaning. And, you know, these books are therapeutic. They are healing us. They are doing so much more than just put money in our pockets, which I think sometimes people look at authors and they go, oh my gosh, you're rich. You've made all this money. And you're like, no, it doesn't work like that. The wealth comes in, exactly. The wealth comes in what it brings to your life. And so laying the foundation brick by brick, a book that you have, penned in dedication to your father, who helps those of us out here who are looking to create foundations or nonprofits. And talk to us a little bit about something I think is important, is what are the mistakes that you see a lot of our nonprofit organizations making? What are those mistakes?
Mm-hmm. So I have a whole chapter on that, and because I really wanted people to know, like, yes, it's hard, but it's not impossible. And I want you to avoid the mistakes that I went through. So I would say probably one of the top things is not really having your paperwork together. And the one mistake that I made initially was when we filed the 501c3, it was one of our board members. We got one question wrong. And what they don't tell you is they'll send it back, deny it, give you your payment back, and you start the process all over. So I feel like, that effort and the amount of time that was, I don't want to say wasted, that could have put us in a position where we can now apply for these grants or now apply for these different resources, but not having an attorney and just kind of filling out the paperwork on our own was like one of the actual mistakes. And then getting to that, it's also not knowing what resources are out there. I think people are so inundated with the amount of information with nonprofits and scholarships that you don't know not what's beneficial, but you don't really know, okay, so where and who and what, how do I get it? What do I have to do to get it? And I think people get so overwhelmed by it just being such a complex process. They don't really like solidify and just say, these are the ones that I'm actually going to use. And I think also getting to the paperwork piece, it's not only about the 501c3, but in a specific state, that you have to have like your charitable charitable, it's called a BCO here in Pennsylvania, but you have to have that documentation to say that, you can fundraise. Because see, for me, I'm always prepared that it's somebody watching, and I just never know. Like, I don't want to get, caught up with, I didn't have all my ducks in a row when it comes to grants, paperwork, 501c3, whatever. I think the other thing really is just people not really being patient. I talk about this in the book as well, is that I had to learn how to really have grace and just understand that having a nonprofit is a long game. It's not like an LLC. It's not like a t-shirt business where like you have this, I'm going to make all this money. It's really not about that. I mean, I'm 5 years in and I'm still building relationships and partnerships and learning things. So, I mean, those are like the top outside of what's in the book that I hope, people will want to read. But I feel like those are some of the top things that if you can avoid that, you're pretty much going in the right direction.
I love that. I love that you're talking about how complex it can be. Setting up those forms. A lot of people will go out and hire someone to do their 501c3 documentation for them. Some of them would do it themselves. Every state has different requirements. And it's so true. I mean, it's work. When I first started mine, I was told that I couldn't do it myself. I needed to hire someone. And then I began to look at how costly it could be to hire someone. But I ended up working with an online organization that helped me. And, I paid a little bit, not much, but I was able to do the bulk of the work myself. But one of the things you have to do when you're filling out all these forms is you really have to define what your organization is going to do. And that becomes, I think, a challenge sometimes because I want to do everything. I want to do everything. Well, that makes it very hard to fundraise on. It makes it very hard to get a board for. So you have to be very specific. Who is your target audience? Who are you trying to help? Are you trying to help youth or the elderly or whomever? And how are you going to go about doing that work? And so, but doing the paperwork yourself does help you to kind of shake out your vision and your mission very well. So yes, I love that. I help people start businesses and I've done things with nonprofits as well. But as you say, when you have an LLC or a for-profit entity, it's about that. It's about you can make a profit for yourself and for your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
When you have a nonprofit, your money should go back into the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes a hard thing because, yes, there are CEOs out there making six figures who run, or executive directors who run nonprofits. But a lot of times those are nonprofits that make a lot of money. But for the most of us, we don't
Yeah.
make a lot of money. A lot of us don't make any money. We're literally
No.
fundraising to put the money back into the business. And so,
Right.
I mean, into the nonprofit. And so that's what we do. But this is so great. And I enjoyed reading your story and what's really motivating you to do this. And I'm glad that you are serious about helping other people. Let's talk a little bit about, though, writing self-help. The thing
Yeah.
about it is, when you are writing a nonfiction book, so I write fiction for a living. This is nonfiction,
Okay.
meaning you're giving factual information and researched information. Talk to us about two things. One, what gave you the confidence to believe that you had enough information, or you could research and get the information to tell this story? What is that confidence? Because that's something our writers are all often asking. They want to do this type of work, but when you're writing nonfiction, it is tough. Because people can always look it up and say, no, that's not what that's not what I heard, or no, you're wrong. Or it can also be outdated after a while because of different systems. Talk to us about that confidence. What did you have to say to yourself, or what happened within yourself to say, I am ready now to pen this because I feel that I have enough knowledge to put it on paper?
So the one thing for me was, like, this is the only book of its kind on the market. I can confidently say that. Like, there is not a book that speaks about starting a nonprofit, whether it's a private foundation or charity, and that also chronicles as like a memoir and I'm speaking in my Philly girl narrative because I know that this information is not an easy read. So, it's interesting when I have friends or people who read it, they're like, yeah, this is you. I can, like, it's all because you want to make it interesting enough so that people don't get discouraged. Mm-hmm. So the thing that I had a really hard time with when starting the nonprofit and the Scholarship Foundation was, there was breadcrumbs, there were piecemeal, but there was not one collective place for me to find information. Like on a nonprofit, you can find a book like that, but not about a scholarship foundation. Like, that took time for me to learn. I had maybe one or two mentors that had done it before. But once again, like, there was not information out there. So a lot of it was the experience that I had myself, just kind of saying, when it comes to like drawing up all the paperwork, or like, are you going to get your attorney to make sure like you have documentation for the kids, especially like if they're underage, it's a lot of things that I make sure that our attorney signs for them. Like, just because you're talking about marketing and putting them on like brochures and things like that, it's so many, it's these kind of things that you think about. And I had to like learn as I went along. So between going through like the 1 year of what I did not see, I'm one of these people, like, I create things that I don't see, and I really wanted a collective place for people to find it. So to learn how to to start the nonprofit, and that's all things, not just 501, but like, when it came to your bank account and, social media, to the documents when it came to the actual scholarship. There's things that I'm starting to change now. But in the back of the book, I put resources in there about, the link for the 1023 or the easy form or the W9. Like, I put specific links, and I did update it in this second edition because, as you said, sometimes things change, like the Amazon Smiles, like that was out during the first edition. So like I said, to have such a bolus of information, but to want to tell someone in a way like, look, I know this is going to be a little boring, but you can get through it because it's about that bigger mission, was where the confidence came from.
And that's great. I mean, because we have to stick to our guns if we're trying to help the community. We have to kind of get beyond ourselves sometimes and say, you know what, I'll just do the work. But you're absolutely right. When I started Life Skills, before that, I started an organization called the I Invest Youth Business Competition back in 2015.
Mhm.
And Life Skills is our nonprofit arm. However, one thing I learned because I was pushing this competition for youth, I had done it for
Mhm.
adults for the state of Maryland when I was working in economic development. So I'm going to create the same program for youth and work with 10 to 19-year-olds. And what I found out was that you could not communicate with 10-year-olds over on social media the way you think. Now, you don't know these things until you get in there and you
Right.
start talking to attorneys and they're like, FCC is going to block a lot of you can't just communicate with kids at a certain age. And so
Right.
I had to increase that to 13. So now my competition is for those 13 to 19. And I'm often getting young people who say, well, I'm 11. I have my own business. I want to compete. I want to be a part of it. But I'm like, it's so limited to how I can communicate with you. And I don't want to get myself in any trouble.
Mhm.
And so, but I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for going through the process of the paperwork and talking to attorneys. So that's great that you've
Mhm.
done so much of your due diligence to understand
Yeah.
this process and wanting to share it with everybody. So everyone out there, if you are interested in starting a nonprofit and a scholarship specifically, be sure to pick up this book, Laying the Foundation
Yes.
Brick by Brick. You're going to learn from Khadijah, who calls herself an around the way girl.
Yes.
LL. First of all, she's got the
Yes.
Queen's name.
Yes.
And then she's talking. She her in her bio says she's an around the way girl of that. So I think it's so excellent that of what you're doing. Let's talk a little bit about that scholarship that you're giving
Mhm.
out. Talk to us
Yes.
about how do you qualify for your scholarship, when you take applications, and tell us about some of the kids who have received it and
Sure.
what more are you doing to make sure they understand your father's story
Mhm.
and how that inspired you? Mhm.
So we provide two $1,000 scholarships annually. On occasion, the board and we fight sometimes about adding one or two because sometimes their stories are just so impactful. But as far as the eligibility requirements, it is for African American high school seniors. They have to have at least a 3.0 GPA. We do have an SAT if the college itself still requires it, because there are some that still require that policy. There is an essay, 2 recommendation letters, and an unofficial transcript. We open every year around September, as soon as the students are coming back. We just closed our actual application last Friday. We received about 45 applicants. And so for the most part, not only do we provide just the $1,000, the thing that I've learned in the 5 years is we are providing empowerment. We are providing confidence. Like, there are parents and even students, the teachers, the youth advocates, they will reach out to me and say, thank you, because by me winning this scholarship, like, some have never won or they don't think that they can. So like, they're already coming from circumstances where they feel hopeless. And so now you have somebody that looks like them, that sounds like them, because Khadijah is going to be who she is at all times. And she made it, and she sees you, and she wants you to make it too. So the one thing that I had one scholar, it's about 2 years ago. I want to say she was our 2023 scholar. Her essay was outstanding. I have never, I don't want to say never, but it's rare that I've, written or seen an essay written by someone that was so passionate and so articulate. And it was the first scholarship she won. And so I typically try to check in with them. And in her testimonial, the one thing she said was, when I received the Craig D. Butler Scholarship, it was the first one that I won, and it made me go out and apply for more. And she won 8 more just for that. So it's like, as much as we think $1,000 may not mean something, it's the impact that it has after that. It's also just following her as well. She used to be really shy, and she said when she went to school, she knew she had to get out there. She knew she had to get into certain programs and activities. And so that's really what I think that it's about as well, is like giving them that confidence. Like, despite what the world is telling you, we need people like us and you, Michelle, like to empower these kids, to let them know, no, you can do it. Like you really can. So, it's all the time where it's not only just from the students that I'm seeing, but what they're telling me, the impact that it's making. And, I think a lot of people, because I still get emotional from time to time, especially like when I meet people at book signings and things like that. And they're like, your dad must have really been special, because it's rare for women to talk about their dad and to still smile about them as if they're here. So he must have been, especially with the kind of fathers that don't always show up. So it like I said, it's one of those things that kind of falls into your lap, but I definitely think it was just God's assignment, because there was no way it was going to happen.
That's beautiful. I love so much of what you're saying, and something that's important that I hope everyone who's listening to us realizes, that you don't have to tumble the whole mountain to make an impact on the people around you. You can do small things, and those things mean so much to people. A $500 scholarship is a game changer to a young person who has never had anyone to stand up and say, I believe in you. You give them $500, you can change their life. I think that is something we don't think enough of, because we always, especially now with social media, we see people do these huge things. Oh, this person is given a full scholarship, a full ride here, or they're given 20,000 or 40,000. And you're like, oh, how do I compete with that? You don't have to worry about competing with that. Don't worry about it. Do your part.
Right.
Because each and every one of us, we have a part to play in helping to build up our community and our kids. And so I love what you're doing, because I do the same thing. I give a $500 grant now to youth entrepreneurs, young youth entrepreneurs, and it comes with mentorship. And I have watched those kids over the years take that 500 and win competitions all across the South. And now they're at, some of the best business schools in the country. And some of them, I have one young man who's on Forbes 30 under 30. And he has created 2 multi-million-dollar companies. And so when you see that, that was worth it. And he contacts me and he calls me and he keeps up with me, because he feels that I was the foundation. My little 500 or 1,000 he got from me laid the foundation. But I didn't just get the money. I made sure they had access to me as well. So congratulations on what you're doing. Congratulations on your love of your father and keeping his memory and his name alive. That's what we have to do. And I just hope that every young person who comes through your program, that they are inspired by what you're doing. So as they grow and are successful in what they do, they will give back, because we've got to keep giving back and giving back, and that's important. Let's talk a little bit as we close out about your book, your writing, and your marketing, because it's always important to know first how people can get the book, but what are you doing to market it, and how are things going?
So you're an author and you're a publisher. So I had a traditional publisher. It was a smaller publishing company with the first one. But now that I'm my own publisher, it is certainly a lot of work. It is certainly a lot of legwork. I like to do interviews like this so that people can get to know me. I hate to say that I'm personable, but I think I am. Like, when I meet people, I think I want people to know who I am, because that's what's a part of in the book. And it's, I feel like when you get to know somebody, like you have to be invested. And so with marketing, a lot of it is, I'm just trying out this new Goodreads giveaway. That's a new thing for me. I'm actually going to join one of the Saturday, pen posses. I want to make sure I said that right. I can't wait to see that. Really, a lot of it, especially like at the beginning, as far as the writing process, was learning about applying for that Library of Congress number, the copywriting. The biggest thing was the editing, like hiring a typesetter and a formatter and a graphic designer, all of these things, learning who Bowker is, if I'm even saying the name right, for the ISBN. Like, the differences between you can't take the free version of everything, because I feel like it's one of those, like, you get what you pay for, versus, really having ownership as like the publisher. But having ownership also means you're doing the legwork, as well. Like, you're really building the, laying the foundation, right? Like, you're really laying the foundation as an author. So it's really a lot of things that I do is in person. I'm definitely going to come to one of the Black Ink book signings. There's a lot of I've had television shows before, magazine articles, blogs, so that's a big piece. But I feel like, a lot of people say to you, carry like your book around, and I do sometimes. Like, I will just like carry it so people kind of know. But it's a multitude of things. It's social media, it's YouTube, it's these interviews. It's a multitude of things, because you just never know like who you're going to touch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, some of what you said is it's work, girl, it's work. You got to get out there. You got to work this thing in order to get that book out the door. You're going to pack it in your car. I've got them in the back of my car. You're going to tell everybody about it. And it's part of the process, but it's so worth it. I mean, it's your legacy. It's what your kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews will know about you, and they will also know about your father. That's so many of us who are trying to find or create these organizations will have it on our bookshelves. That is what it's all about. You are leaving a legacy, and I'm so grateful to have you a part of Black Writers Workspace, as well as to have you on the podcast to talk about your work, laying the foundation brick by brick. Thank you so much for being with us. Tell everybody where they can get a copy of your book. That would be great.
Yes. So currently the book is available for pre-orders. The official release date is May 6th. Pre-orders are available on Barnes & Noble as well as on Amazon. But once it goes live, it'll pretty much be everywhere that books are sold. I'm hoping at some point to get it in a physical bookstore, Black owned, God willing, but that's where people can purchase it even right now. So Barnes & Noble and Amazon has it available. I will also have some signed copies on my website on www.craigdbutlerscholarship.com. And I'm also on social media. I'm thinking about trying to play around with some giveaways, so everyone stay tuned as well. I love to give away little, tidbits about what we do in the scholarship, and, just some swag.
That's great. Great to know. Thank you so much. Great having you on here, everybody. The book is also going to be on directtoauthor.com, which is my platform where I help to promote independent books. So please find it on there as well. So we just want to tell everyone to go out, get a copy of the book, support Khadijah Butler and her book, Laying the Foundation Brick by Brick. This is important, especially if you're starting an organization. If you want to also learn about her personal story and her inspiration behind it, that is essential. So thank you so much, Khadijah, for being here with us. We hope that you have a wonderful day. And for those of you, you can find this on Facebook, on my page, Author Michelle D. Jackson, as well on YouTube, on Black Writers Workspace, and definitely follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our page. To our channel, and find us on Instagram as well. So to everyone, we want to say thank you for being with us. And until next time, this is the PM Podcast. Take care.